Hi everyone, welcome to the Real Keal podcast. This is episode 1. We're going to talk about our story. Typically, we will have a disclaimer at the beginning of every episode to let you know that we are not experts on what we are, the subject matter that we're covering. But today, we are the experts on our story. Tyler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
You seem tired.
I am tired. We did yard work yesterday. I'm a little tired. As far as weekends go, I'm always a little more melancholic, I guess, on Sundays because
we call those the Sunday blues.
Sunday blues. I think that's something probably everyone can relate to. The anticipation of a weekend and then the weekend being over far sooner than what you planned on and maybe not accomplishing everything you hoped to or wanted to. So, but I think in general, I'm pretty good. It's cold today in terms of how the weather's been. It's in mid 40s, but it's kind of cloudy and gloomy. So it's a good day to sit inside and record a podcast. So Hannah, how are you doing today?
I am good. I'm also kind of tired. We just got back from a walk not too long ago. And yeah, it is cold outside, but I felt like it smelled like snow outside, which I'm getting excited for winter.
Yeah, there's definitely a vibe that it's colder than what it actually is.
I know.
It's weird.
Yeah, and gray skies. Anyway, so today we are, like I mentioned, talking about our story. So let's dive right in. Our story starts in 2015, September of 2015. I was starting my first big girl job. I had just graduated in December of 2014, worked at Starbucks actually, while I was trying to figure out what it was that I was meant to do. Still don't know what I'm meant to do, but I think we're still, all right, is that a lifelong thing or do you eventually figure that out? I'd like to know. But I started at the company that you were working at the time in, like I said, September of 2015. You'd been working there for several years.
About 2.5 years.
And I was petrified to start that job. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any confidence in myself as a professional. So I was very, very nervous. I was being passed around the first day to meet everybody in the office, as you do. And I first met you in the kitchen of the floor that we worked on. And I remember thinking, ooh, he's tall. He's cute. Tyler, for anyone who's not directly related to us, doesn't actually know us. Tyler, you're 6'5", 6'4".
I had to do biometric screening for health insurance purposes a year ago, and they informed me that I was only 6'4", and I'd been telling everyone for years that I was 6'5".
So you started off our relationship based on a lie. That was the first thing
I did. You were like, how's the weather up there? And I was like...
I definitely did not throw that line at you. But yeah, I remember thinking, oh, he's cute. And then I promptly forgot about you as soon as I got back to my desk. I forgot pretty much everybody that I met right away.
As it should be when you're starting a new job. You're supposed to be learning the job, not flirting with the people that are already there.
I was not flirting. At that point, I was just trying to learn everybody's names, and it's the worst thing to do on somebody's first day to have them be introduced to 20 plus people because you're not going to remember it.
To anyone I've ever met and don't regularly interact with, I don't care if you told me your name or not. I will not remember it because I have so much social anxiety when it comes to meeting new people and doing new things that my brain, it's like flipping a switch. It just turns off when somebody introduces themselves. I'm like,
well, you start thinking about how you are being perceived and what are you going to say to keep the conversation flowing.
I'm way more worried about how I'm going to say my name or say my name. I'm way more worried about how I'm going to introduce myself to someone and not do or say something awkward, like start singing like that. So I just completely blank out, and then I will spend the rest of forever never addressing someone by name. Because even if I'm confident in someone's name, I have this irrational fear of calling someone by the wrong name. So I will never.
What's the worst that could happen if you do that? They're gonna say, "Oh, actually, it's Tina, not
and I
Florida."
will remember that for the rest. Florida, yeah, Tina in Florida, and I will remember that for the rest of my life. That I messed up that person's name. I'll be at 3:00 in the morning. I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, I can't remember remember that one. I can't believe that one time I totally messed up Florida's name and called her Flora.
We just finished watching the
Haunting of Bly Manor.
and I was going for Flora, and instead I said Florida. Also, that reminded me of that one. It was on Tumblr. It was like me lying in bed at 5 a.m. Why did that guy honk at me at 67th and Massachusetts Street on September 14th of 2015?
Exactly. But I do feel that way all the time. It's not a joke. Tumblr is my real life or something like that. As you can see, taking anything seriously is going to be a challenge for us, and we're probably going to have a lot of deviations. So anyway.
I think our next interaction was there was a pizza party downstairs. It was at some point during my first week there. And I remember, I'm pretty sure, I don't think you remember this, but you were wearing like a denim shirt and I was wearing a denim shirt. And I think that was one of the things that I was like, oh, you stalker. I think that's what my words were basically. Were like, oh, you copied my outfit, you outfit copier, something like that. You don't remember this?
I don't remember that. I loosely remember it. I loosely remember the pizza discussion. And I think I probably at this point was already curious and probably, I don't remember if I did the thing where I tried to get down there first and then let her sit by me, or if I tried to sit close or
you were
whatever.
at the end of the table and I was on the longer side. Yeah. And I remember you were behind me in the line and I passed you one of the paper plates, which was my...
And that's it. That's our story. The deal was sealed because she passed me a plate and...
I sealed the deal, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's the end of our story right there, is the magic passing.
Then we got married, and then that was it. That's it. The end. So we did end up in the right place at the right time pretty often during that first couple of weeks. So I started on September 14th, and we became a couple we went on our first date on October 11th and became a couple on October 15th. I remember all of these dates for whatever reason. So it happened pretty quickly. And at the beginning,
it definitely felt slower than that as it's happening. I will say that you did most of the pursuing early on. So I don't know at what point you decided, I'm going to remember who this person is now after you forgot about me after the first day or whatever. But I think we both probably try to intentionally put ourselves in places where we may be able to have interactions or whatever.
You more so than me, I think, because I wasn't as, I don't know, like, actually, no, I take that back because there was.
That's not true at all.
Huh?
That's not true at all.
Yeah. Your desk was right by this.
What she referred to previously as the she referred to previously as the kitchen. It's actually a coffee room because it's where you get coffee and make copies.
There's a big printer and fax machine in there.
There's a fridge and a water cooler. So and an ice maker and a sink. It's not really a kitchen, but
yeah. You were making coffee when I first went in there, not making a copy. Anyway, where your desk was right by what we called the library. It was a long cabinet that had a bunch of books, references that we could go to.
Yeah, my desk was in the place where like the hot spot for literally everything. So I had the coffee room behind me. I had the mailboxes behind me. I had the library to my left. So basically, I always knew anytime anybody was going anywhere or doing anything because it was a high traffic zone.
Exactly. And I know that I visited that library during my first week there, or first month there, I guess, far more often than anyone ever visited the library there. I was grabbing books and looking up references for things that I easily could have looked up on Google. I definitely did not need to go over as often as I did, but yeah, that's what you do when you're trying to pursue somebody, I guess. And there was one time in particular, you were in the parking lot and your window was rolled down. And I remember you were just sitting there.
I had to check important social media because I'm a kind of a big deal.
Yeah, right. I remember walking out. I was like, oh my gosh, he's there. And we had a brief interaction and I got in the car and I remember like rolling up getting in my car, making sure it was all sealed up. And then I immediately was like squealing to myself, which is pretty nauseating to look back on. I don't do those things anymore, but
I don't think that's true either. It's important to note that this was somewhere in here was the start of us fighting over this premium parking spot that really it was just this spot. The parking lot was in 2 tiers, and we always parked in the second tier, and this one spot was the one that was closest to
stairs.
Closest to the stairs going down.
Lazy.
It wasn't even that. It was you had no one could park beside you on that one side because there was this little, white lined off area where it wasn't anything. So it was still the parking lot. It was just, this is where the stairs are. So it became a joke and became a way for us to flirt there. Would it be like, oh, you got the parking spot. Oh no, I got the parking spot. And
exactly.
yeah. Cause we were mature adults at this point.
We couldn't just say, hey, I'm attracted to you.
At 25 and 22, we were mature adults. But also, again, I discourage workplace romances and whatnot. But, when you're, I'm an incredibly introverted person. So,
how do you meet people?
Yeah, exactly. How do you meet people when you're a normal average adult without strong hobbies that put you, or you have hobbies that are more like, these are things I do by myself as opposed to
reading and knitting or whatever.
Yeah, not things that you go out and interact with people. It is hard to meet people. And I don't think either one of us were dating app type people. Neither one of us had been on dating apps. So it wasn't something that we were interested in trying or even pursuing at that time back in 2015. How we'd feel about that now, 5 years later, if neither one of us, if we hadn't met and we weren't in a relationship, I don't know.
I lived vicariously through all of my friends that had Bumble and Tinder. That's how a lot of my friends met their significant others. And I remember asking them a lot about the dates that they were going on because I never was like that. I just never did join. Yeah, and our dating history is fairly similar in that it's pretty limited. Both of us only had a handful of relationships. So anyway, we were flirting a lot, and we eventually started chatting on Facebook was the start of it. I remember I was able to see your interests, and one of them was The Legend of Korra. And I remember, I pretended as if I had never seen it before and that I was thinking of starting it for the first time. And so I asked you if you had seen it because I was just starting it, which it was a lie, but it wasn't a lie because I was let me think about this for a second. Okay. I was starting it for the first time once I realized that you had it as one of your interests.
What she's saying is she catfished me.
I saw that you liked it, and then I had watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was something that my sister had watched, so I had an interest already in it too, but now I had a reason to start watching.
And I think you had a different experience with it than me because I think we were 2.5 years different in age. So, around the time it was airing, it was more of you were the target age group for Avatar: The Last Airbender. Whereas I didn't have cable at the time. So I didn't even have access to Nickelodeon. So I couldn't actually watch it. So I did not get interested in the franchise until just a year or so before you and I met. And I had just come off being super obsessed with the whole franchise and was still super into it. So I had a lot of just stuff about it on my Facebook. And this is me being overly confident in Facebook privacy settings and thinking, oh, I've got all my privacy settings set to max and Hannah's not going to be able to find my Facebook, but I'm going to drop this one hint. And if she really is interested, maybe she'll try it. So anyway, I dropped a hint about a mutual friend or whatever that I discovered we had on Facebook. Or I told her that we had one mutual friend or something like that. So anyway, she ended up finding my Facebook, but I thought even if she found it, unless I accepted a friend request, then she wouldn't be able to see all these things. But apparently a lot of my interests were still public despite me thinking they weren't.
My determination cannot be hindered by Facebook privacy.
So what she's saying is that she is a stalker.
I'm
and
a crazy person.
That she stalked me.
I did not stalk
and then
you.
catfished me into being like, oh man, this person that I'm hesitant about because workplace romances are a bad idea and I should actually stay away and not make bad decisions, even though she's cute and I want to know more about her. This is a bad idea, but I'm going to play with fire a little bit here.
Did you guys just hear that I was called cute? Because I heard it.
I don't remember that. I blacked out. Anyway, so
we started talking on Facebook. Once we got each other's numbers, there was a night that we stayed up really late. It was like a Saturday. No, it was a Friday night. You had a bunch of friends over, I believe. And somebody look it up. October 11th, 2015. Was that a Saturday or a Friday?
it was a what holiday would that be? Because I know work was closed. It was a long weekend because work was closed that Monday. So what?
Let me look it up
October.
really quick.
I know we had a long weekend. So it was
it Labor Day? I mean,
it was
not Labor Day, but no, Memorial Day. Oh my gosh.
It may have been Labor Day. Maybe also there's a chance that our office was closed for the Royals. Because of the time that was the year that the Royals won the World Series, and our office at that time
it was a Sunday.
Closed. Okay, so yeah, we were closed the following day on Monday for whatever.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so I remember now. So it was a Saturday that you had a bunch of people over.
Yeah, we just had I was living with two of my best friends at the time, and we just had like a house party or whatever. So
yeah, and I was texting you, but then the phone got passed around, and I basically talked to all of your closest friends that night, and it got pretty late. I think it was like 2 a.m. when finally I was
all of the best decisions are made.
Exactly.
2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. After talking to all your friends with copious alcohol in their systems, I finally got back to you, and I think one of them pressured you into asking me out.
A couple of them were like, you need to ask her out. She's still talking to her this time. You need to ask her out. And I was like, I don't think I should be making decisions right now. No. I will emphasize that my hesitance really was, a lot of my hesitance was, we are coworkers and she just started working here and this is a bad idea and I don't want to
intrude on her learning.
Yeah, I don't want to mess up her learning experience, and also doesn't look good on me to be going after the new person working there. And also
you're very noble.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but anyway, I eventually asked her out and said, do you want to go on a date tomorrow or whatever? I don't know what I said. Probably didn't.
I think you said, are you free for coffee tomorrow?
Okay. Yeah. Which was probably words planted.
Which I don't care what I had going on the next day. I was free for coffee. So
she's like, I was supposed to be climbing Mount Everest, but you don't need to know
that. So I was fairly confident you were going to cancel on me because I figured you were not going to feel well, which you did not feel well.
I did not feel well, but I still stuck it out and even I put it on you to plan everything. So you decided where we went and
what we did.
We did get coffee.
We did. Yeah. We went to Starbucks, which I was familiar with because I had mentioned in the introduction episode was that I was a former barista. And so we got coffees. We went to a park. Well, it's a man-made lake or pond. I don't know.
I think they call it a lake, but it's, it's small. It's
a large body of water that we walked around several times and just started chatting and getting to know each other better. And we covered pretty much every topic that if you looked up a list of things that you should not talk about on a first date, that was pretty much everything that we talked about on that first date. Neither one of us really had any boundaries. It didn't seem like either one of us was trying to hide anything. We're very forthcoming people in our intentions and what we want. We're not very secretive or
and I think that goes back to talking about mentioning our limited dating history or whatever. I think just both of us at that point were far more interested in trying to find something that could potentially be a long-term relationship as opposed to something that would be short-lived or just hanging out or whatever. We wanted something more serious. So I think we were covering topics that were important to us, important to getting to know us, important to these are things that matter to us as individuals, and seeing if we connect on those levels of things that are important.
Which I think it was clear from the get-go that we were fairly compatible. It was very clear to me that family was important to you, and I told you I had a big family that I was really close with. So that date lasted for 8 hours. I remember that. At the time, I was living at my parents' house, saving some money before I moved out. And I remember, so we went on the date, and then we went back to the house that you were living with your roommates at the time. So we went, had this really long, intense conversation. Then I met your roommates. I think that somewhere in there we had our first kiss. Then we went to dinner. So it was, none of this was really planned other than the coffee and the walk. None of the other things were planned.
And I'll say I was just a bundle of anxiety this whole time and just assumed I was doing everything wrong, because in my head I was like, these are all the things you don't do on a first date, all the things you don't talk about on a first date. And I think I was convinced myself, I was like, why is this date still happening? I've clearly messed up everything. And I was like, I couldn't read or interpret you. And
well, and I had, like I said, I have fairly limited dating experience, and the reason being, well, probably for many reasons, but I have really high standards. I do not want to waste my time with a guy that I know is not serious, is not respectful, is not, polite, is not funny, is lame. Like I don't mess around like that. So
I'm definitely lame, so she messed around there.
I don't mean lame as in like you're like nerdy or whatever. I mean lame as in like you're just like you don't have anything going on and for you that's yours. Like you don't have any passion, any drive, any anything like that. I that's what I consider lame. I think people that have no, and don't care. That's the other thing. Is like if you don't have a clear path in life, you're not sure, that's one thing. But if you don't know what you want to do in life, but you don't care and you're just content with just kind of floating out in this ocean of nothingness, I have a problem. I think that's lame. But anyway,
I think she wants, what she's trying to say is that she likes people who have things that they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And
people that care, people that give a crap.
And that's the thing. We don't want to take away or insult anyone that doesn't necessarily have a clear direction, right, or path in life, because that's a really challenging thing to find. And especially, as we mentioned, us not being experts or anything, there's obviously, for neither one of us, there's something that really pulls us or compels us to do one particular goal or like journey or whatever in life. But we each have a lot of different things that we're passionate about and hobbies and things that we're interested in exploring. And I know that was something that early on you told me that was important to you, was just someone that was passionate about something,
anything,
something.
Yeah.
Whether,
I mean, hopefully something good, not,
yeah.
My passion is stalking people or,
well, clearly Hannah's passion was stalking people. So, but talking about hobbies or interests or, just, human service things or volunteering or something like that. And, I think that's something anyone can connect with or relate to and be like, you want someone who has drive. I think with any relationship that having things in common is important, but it's just as important to have things that
makes you different and can strengthen the other person.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I said, I am not to totally veer off what we were talking about, but I am being an optimist, at least the way that I am, I can tend to live with my head in the clouds sometimes, and I don't always think everything through because I think things will just work out. I don't necessarily have to have a plan B or a safety net. I just think, well, if I work hard, it's going to work out. And I think that you sometimes are thinking that, the worst case scenario is always going to happen. So you don't always go for things that you.
Yeah, I have to have a plan. I need to know what my end point is before I can start anything. And I think that often means I don't end up starting things, or I don't enjoy the journey. And my perspective helps Hannah not overcommit herself to a bunch of different things, or to to overlook the things that could go wrong. And then she counters that in me. Yeah. And she counters that in me to make me see more of the good in every day, and also to not be afraid, not as afraid to try things. And if they don't work out, they don't work out.
Right. So I think it was important to me to not find anyone who was exactly like me. I didn't want to, my friends are fairly similar to who I am, but I think it's important to surround yourself with people who challenge your viewpoints. And if you have someone like that as your best friend, I think that would be really stressful. But, and we are fairly similar. We see eye to eye on most things, but our general outlook on life is fairly different. And I think that has always been, it's a friction point sometimes. I definitely get frustrated when I feel like you're not being as optimistic as you could be. And then I think you get frustrated because I'm thoughtless when it comes to a lot of like house projects or whatever, because I just want to go things head on, headstrong.
Yeah, you have more of a dive in, whereas I'm like, I will never start something because I'm so worried about all the ways that we need to figure out or plan beforehand to make sure it's going to work seamlessly. And as we all know, that's just not how life works. Life doesn't work without unforeseen circumstances coming up. And we'll get into that more in the next episode. I think we're on a bit of a tangent here, so let's switch back into our first date. And I will say, I think the other takeaway from that was her coming to my new, I was new. My roommates and I just started renting this place together. So her meeting my friends, and getting to know more about me through, the type of people I was associating with. But she also saw my, man cave of like all of my nerdy posters and artwork that were on the wall, because I was recently going through a phase of I'm a nerd and I'm going to fly my geek flag high and be like, this is all this anime that I like. These are all these comic book things that I like and stuff like that. And I had just, the 2 years before that, I had gone to Comic-Con in Chicago 2 years in a row. And I was really like advertising that on social media and all these things. Like I was really, advertising that, hey, I'm a nerd and this is me and I'm unapologetic about it. And if people don't like it, then I don't care. I'm not going to associate with those types of people. But that was something I definitely did not advertise or show off at work, because I was at the time very focused on, this is my work persona. This is my life persona. And so I think I felt very vulnerable, and I think that's why I also felt like I'm doing everything on this date wrong. And it's like there's a difference between you knowing that I liked Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then be like, oh, here's my wall of anime posters.
Right.
But anyway, so long story short, the first date went really well. We continued talking. 4 days later,
I asked you to ask me to be your girlfriend.
Yes.
Why? Which, in hindsight, I don't know why I just didn't ask you to be my boyfriend. I think I wanted to, because you were so cautious about everything at the beginning. You were so worried about work and whatnot. I definitely didn't want to come on. Well, okay. I was going to say come on too strong, which I definitely did.
You definitely did, and I think that was what I mean, because I think I my confidence in relationships and my ability to handle myself in a relationship or dating, not even relationships, just dating, like I had zero confidence in that at all at the time. So like someone that I was clearly being very open with about like, hey, these are all of the things that are traditionally unfavorable about me or whatever. And you kind of accepting and actually being interested in all these things that made me me. And it took me a long time to accept that, or I guess to get my head around the fact they're like, wait, what? Why are you not running for the hills right now? And we're like, this guy's a loser.
Like I said, I don't care what it is. I find passion to be sexy, to be very intriguing. I don't necessarily care what that thing is. I think it's a very favorable trait and very becoming of a person to be extremely passionate about a hobby or, as long as it's not doing harm unto somebody, I think that's a pretty attractive trait. So I have watched my fair share of anime and read, was it manga? I always called it manga.
Clearly she's an expert.
Obviously it's not what I am. Yeah, not an expert. But no, it's not something that I am reading all the time, but I've definitely had my fair share of reading manga. What is it? Manga? Okay. Well, anyway, so I was not turned off at all. I was not running for the hills, as he says. I was definitely focusing on the aspects that I have been looking for in a partner, which was the fact that you were extremely respectful of me. We had a really good time. We, joked around a lot. That was the thing. I was like, how is he attractive and nice and funny? Like, I was like, how?
I'm the full package.
This is why I don't say things like this, is because you tease me. But no, I was obviously hooked right at the beginning. I remember I got back from that date. And like I said, I was living with my parents at the time. I got back and I flopped onto my bed and rolled around like a fish. I was like just squeeing and, again, pretty nauseating.
I love him, and I don't care who knows him.
I think I even told my mom that night that I was going to marry you. I think I was that kind of delusional.
Psycho.
I know. But look where we are now. We became official 4 days later. There's not anything specifically notable within our first year of, or our first, before we got engaged, I guess, other than meeting each other's family, which was extremely important to me and to you, that we got along with each other's family.
Which I think was another thing we did fairly early on, which again, that was important for us. And we don't want to say one way or another, because I know a lot of people wait a long time before they introduce a new romantic partner or whatever to family, and whatever works for you and however that works for you. But I think for us it was important to okay, hey, we're vibing with each other here, but this is important, and if we're not going to get along well with each other's families, then this probably isn't gonna work, because those are things that were important to each one of us individually. And that's the point to stress there, is that was something for each of us individually.
It was crucial. It was, it was a deal breaker. If we did not at least mostly get along with each other's family, for me, it was a deal breaker. You're not going to form a very close bond with each other's family like right out of the gate. I think that's an unrealistic expectation to have. But basically, if you walked in and you suddenly flip the script and were a totally different person in front of my family and were like, overly, I don't know, just if there were any red flags that came up, I would know that it wouldn't work. No matter how much I liked you or thought that you were cute or whatever, if you didn't get along with my family, then that was that. So we did get along with each other's family, and
friends, family and friends.
Yeah. And that was definitely kind of at the core of the year and a half that we were boyfriend and girlfriend before we got engaged, was, spending time with each other, and then those group settings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spending holidays for the first time with each other. And yeah. Fast forward to April of 2016, correct? 17?
17.
Yeah, 2017. We had been talking about getting engaged. It was definitely on our brains, and we did go ring shopping together, which I don't care what anyone chooses to do. I do think it can be very romantic for somebody to surprise the other person with an elaborate proposal. I think that can be very romantic. But you and I are pretty low key. We're not very fussed, and neither one of us, as much as I like to entertain people and tell a good story, I don't really enjoy being the center of attention.
You also, something you talk about often is that you get really bad secondhand anxiety.
Yes, I
so
do.
the idea of me even trying to do, first of all, I'm not good at like, I know I said I'm a planner, but trying to plan like surprises, it's not, and keep it secret. I'm not good at like keeping secrets.
Sidebar just for a second. That gave me a flashback to the time that I planned your 27th birthday. I can definitely relate to that feeling of total panic and stress when it comes to planning a surprise anything. Getting your family and friends on board to meet us at a restaurant and just
It's
make
my
sure.
26th birthday.
Oh, 26th birthday. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was so stressful to figure out the timing. And basically, all this is to say that I can't imagine that was for a birthday and not even like a milestone birthday, like 30 or 25 or 50.
So even if it was something that I was good at like coordinating or whatever, I don't know how Hannah would have handled a big, elaborate public proposal like that where I coordinate a bunch of people. But again, hats off to anyone who does manage to get their proposal recorded, have that plan, keep it all secret, and not create any suspicion at all. Because
And I'll just interrupt again. I think that it is very just basically know the person that you are proposing to.
yeah, know what they're looking for. And obviously, like she mentioned, we went ring shopping together, and that was something we talked about before when we started talking about, okay, hey, we're at the point where we're considering engagement. We had that conversation together. That's what worked for us. Know your partner, know what they're expecting, or know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't be getting engaged if you don't know them well enough to know what, is going to be okay. If you propose in a way that's really disappointing to them, then maybe you're doing it prematurely because you don't
Know them well enough.
know them well enough to plan what they would really be looking for. And that's, I viewed it from the perspective of this ring is something you're going to be wearing for the rest of our lives together. And I want to make sure that it's what you really want.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had to keep moving forward. We had went back to a vineyard that we went to on our 1 year anniversary that we went to by chance. On our 1 year anniversary, we were trying to go to a local cider mill, and
The kids were out of school that day for whatever reason. I'm not sure what the purpose was.
I think that one was actually for Labor Day.
And we didn't expect it. So there were kids running everywhere. It was not the most romantic place to spend it was a year and a half. It wasn't even, again, it wasn't like a super milestone.
The first time we went to the vineyard was our year anniversary. So what ended up happening is it was a total accident that we ended up there, because when we were going to the cider mill, we saw signs for this vineyard, and anyway, we ended up there. We were like the only people there when we got there. So got like the, first class service with doing a tasting. Neither one of us had done a wine tasting before. And I think that's something that'll be a recurring theme for us, is a lot of the things that we planned, or rather didn't plan, were some of the things that we didn't plan were some of our favorite experiences. And that'll be a recurring theme with me in general, because I often find that the times that I have the most fun are times when I did not plan. Go figure, I'm a planner, and the times when things go well and I didn't plan anything those are my favorite memories. So anyway, so that's how we knew about this vineyard, and it was our 18-month anniversary of dating, which was really only significant because it was a Saturday, and she knew I had the ring at this point, but I had already been out of it. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to propose to you at this thing where we know we're going and doing something. I need to figure something else out. But of course, I was like, in my head, I was like, this is dumb. Why am I not? Why would I?
I was thinking that too. I was like, what are you waiting for?
Well, it was one of those things where it was like, we'd already made the decision. And I think that's where, we decided from a very logical perspective, like, we're ready to take this next step. And then just sitting on this ring seemed silly because we both knew it was coming. And
if you had tried to plan anything, my alarms would be going off. It's not like there's nothing that you could have done at that point where I wouldn't be suspicious.
Yeah, and I think that's where in my head I was like, oh, well, I can't propose at this thing because it's going to be obvious that that's what I'm doing. So I have to tell you beforehand, no, I'm not going to propose during this. But then I grabbed it that morning, and my dumb self had, okay, first of all, movies and proposal videos, all these things, the guy pulls out the whole ring box, and I'm like, okay, I don't know where he was smuggling that because
what cavity of his body?
I had it. She on the way to the vineyard, she sees the ring box poking out of my pocket the way there. So apparently,
like a mile
me
long.
being an idiot thinking, oh, if I tuck my leg right, she won't notice it. And of course, she tells me afterward that she saw it and knew all along that I had it or whatever. And of course I had no plan for when we were there or when I was going to do it or whatever. So it was like, she probably would have been really disappointed if I actually didn't follow through with it. She'd probably be like, okay, seriously, what is that? And why have you not done this yet?
Yeah.
Anyway, we went around, I walked her around to the back, and I was super nervous and anxious. And again, I don't know why. We both knew it was coming. I was super...
And I could tell you were sweating bullets. Again, I knew you had it. I knew you were going to. And we just kept, we went and got glasses of wine. And I kept thinking, I was like, I need to get him, get a drink in him so he can relax. So we did get a drink, and then we sat outside and sipped it. And I could just tell you were, not physically, not literally sweating, but you were sweating. I was like, all right.
And everything, it was really packed this time too. It was really busy because it was all outside this time, and there was live music and a lot going on. So there were a lot of people there. But so anyway, I ended up getting her to walk around with me by ourselves to the backside of the venue, which they had a field there with a couple of horses. So walked over there, and
that's where he asked me.
Yes.
And I don't know why. I always want to bring this up.
I knew you were going to bring it up, so I paused because I knew you wanted to talk about it.
It's funny. I don't know why. But he stood up. I looked at, we snapped a photo, and then we hugged. I don't remember the order of events, but I gave you a long hug, and I remember opening my eyes, and there was a tree nearby in the shape of a Y. So there was the base, the trunk, and then it split off into two main branches, and in the crux of the two branches, there was a crumpled up empty Miller Lite can. And I don't know why, but my eyes got locked onto that. And I thought, this is symbolic of something. And I don't know what. I was like, this is a metaphor. What is it a metaphor for? I don't know. I just thought it was funny.
So then we went back around, got another drink, because at this point it was like, okay, now it's done. There's this secret thing. We're surrounded by all these people, and we have this secret now. And I think it was shortly after that some other couple got engaged, which in retrospect, I'm glad they got engaged after us, since they had this big elaborate one.
Yeah.
I think there was a dog involved or something. Of course, it was in front of everyone. I think there was a dog involved in this proposal or whatever. I don't know if the ring was tied to the dog or what. I don't remember, but it was and then it was after that, it was like, okay, we saw what we need to see. We're going to leave now.
Yeah, let's go. And then we made all of the phone calls, and I think we drove straight to my parents' house, and we told them we got engaged, and yeah.
Yeah.
So
sounds about right.
That's the engagement story. We got married 1.5 years after we got engaged. So we waited a little bit of time. A lot of my two sisters who were married, they got engaged, and then I think exactly 1 year later that they got married. So we waited a little bit longer.
I think we were just trying to enjoy get used to calling each other fiance, and enjoy that, and also plan a wedding. again, as logical people, we picked our date based on we wanted to get married in the fall, and we also were trying to coordinate with I was in a rental property with my friends, and I had a lease, and trying to figure out a time when, okay, let's get married when my lease is up, so I'm not breaking a lease, and then all the things associated with that or whatever. So it worked out great for us.
I was living with my sister at the time in her house that she had just purchased. And so it just worked out that your lease ended and then you moved in, I think 2 months before the wedding. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
So, and we lived with my sister for a year or so.
A little over a year.
Yeah. Saving money and just kind of it. And again, this is just our experience. I think that every couple is different. And I think some couples do need to, they would benefit from being on their own right away and struggle together and figure out, how they're going to manage the world and navigate the world together, lean on each other and not on anyone additional for support. Yeah. But for us, we are very, again, logical people. And it seemed like a necessary stepping stone because, yes, we were excited to live together for the first time and whatnot. But when we were spending time together at your house, there were always your roommates around. And then whenever, I moved out, there was my roommate. And so it was kind of a nice stepping stone where we were living together, but there was an additional person there and it was family. So it was.
Yeah. And it worked for us. And there's obviously difficulties with that, especially when you're having like a difficult conversation or whatever. And then you realize we're not in our own space or whatever. So,
trying to be respectful of that while also trying to, if you're having a difficult conversation or a fight or whatever, you want to wrap it up and actually, come to some sort of resolution. But to do that in a shared space with somebody, you have to be respectful that, okay, this is their sanctuary and you're bringing in kind of stress into their world. So just finding the right balance and, maybe moving it to a private place and finishing that conversation.
And I think that was, it can go either way for people. Some people, I think a lot of people would discourage that, especially in their first year of marriage, to live with someone else and to not live alone because
we got some feedback from people that was not the best way to go about it. And we respectfully did not follow the advice of some other people.
We did what made sense for us. And, as with anything, there were advantages and disadvantages to that. So we just did decide that what was important to us was to pay off some bills that we had individually, to save up money because neither one of us really wanted to. We were ready to have our own space and feel our own space. I had hopped around in several different rental properties for a while, both apartments and houses, and I was ready for something a little more permanent that felt like getting grounded in like finding my roots. Like this is my place. And I think that you were doing that too, where you were ready to just have something a little more permanent. So for us, it made sense to pay off some bills and also save money until we could get a house for ourselves. So I think that's the next step that,
and you what do you do when you do things like that? You sacrifice the, there is a possibility that if we would have moved out sooner and figured out how to pay bills and be okay with being a little bit in debt, we could have had perhaps an experience that could have strengthened our relationship.
I think we were really bad about dating. Like we weren't going on dates. Mm-hmm.
Because and this is a recurring theme in our relationship as well, is that you and I are both very frugal and we do not like debt. I don't know anyone that likes debt, but we were very intentional that first year of marriage to pay off debt and, start saving and having that cushion before we did make a house purchase.
Which worked for us, in most ways, but it's definitely one of those things where it's like you eventually start to feel claustrophobic or whatever about like, I'm not and especially for me, this is something I have to be careful of, is making sure that I'm enjoying things as opposed to always, this is our plan, these are the steps we have to get here, and then once we get to that destination, we'll be happy. And I think that is definitely going to be a recurring theme for us. And as a little teaser to our next episode, we'll talk about the next episode will be very focused on how sometimes no matter how much you plan, life can happen and slap you in the face and surprise you and completely change that plan. So it is important to
be adaptable.
And it's important to make sure you're actually enjoying the time as you go through, as opposed to just
we definitely suffered from being business partners and not, fiancés or husband and wife.
And I'll say here, we mentioned we met through work. We do no longer work together, and something we didn't really touch on, but definitely was a hurdle throughout our entire relationship up through at the time we got married. We did still work together, and that definitely adds a complication. There's a certain
we could do an entire episode on dating a coworker.
Yeah. But all the things that you would expect, where and the things you wouldn't expect, where everyone at your life, there's a blurred line between your personal life and your professional life, which I mentioned earlier was something that had always been important to me, to have that clear delineation. Well, that gets blurred. And then also it becomes hard to leave work at work when you both are so aware of what's going on at work and any stressors or something like that you have. It's hard to let those moments pass or whatever. So anyway.
And having a conversation about work when you're at home, while it's important to be able to talk to your significant other about your stressors at work and situations that you've been in, when in such granular detail as to what the other person is working on and doing day to day, is really difficult.
Yeah, it's hard for both of you from both angles of trying to be supportive and also trying to let things go. We very likely will cover that in another episode at some point in a little more detail. But point is to say that within a year, less than a year of us getting married, we did start seriously looking for houses. We found a house. While at the time it didn't feel quickly, we did find a house fairly quickly. And we proceeded with that and got our first house
in October of 2019.
And we spent about a month and a half doing a lot of cosmetic updates, which we dragged out because we did a lot of the demo work ourselves, and then we did a lot of painting ourselves.
That was the house that we got. Is an older house, 40 years old, I think, is when it.
It was 40 years old when we bought it.
I mean, that's not old compared to some of the other houses, but it was not a new build. It was definitely what?
Yeah, I was gonna say, in an age of HGTV where we're
right.
Where I think you're kind of constantly bombarded with the style changes and updates and whatever when you come into a house that hasn't had a lot of stylistic changes for that time. But we were focused on the bones. We were focused on big ticket items, making sure everything that could be a big expense or whatever was accounted for, taken care of, and then we could really focus on like, how do we take this space and make it ours? So I think that was a really fun. It was a stressful experience because we were working full time, leaving work, coming over here every night because we were not able to live in the house because of all the stuff we were doing.
I mean, we were tearing up floors, like you said. We were painting constantly. It was, it definitely didn't make sense for us to try to live in the same space that was essentially a construction zone.
Yeah. And so it was obviously, again, a huge advantage. And we're lucky to have had the opportunity to continue to indefinitely live with her sister at this time, while we navigated through that and were able to do what we wanted to do. So that's, we went into 2020 with still working on house projects. And then at that point we were settling down on the bigger ones that we were doing right now. Obviously anyone who owns a house, that the projects never end. And anyone who's planning on or hoping to get away from rental life and get a house, just know that projects will never end, and that there will always be surprises and unexpected things that will go wrong or turn up, especially when you're doing renovations, because there is no better way to find problems with your house than when you start tearing stuff out.
When you bring things back to the studs, you get to see the fundamental issues.
Yes.
Not that we were tearing down a ton of walls or anything, but I mean that
anytime you mess with something, you find the problems or flaws.
Exactly. I just realized we totally bypassed the wedding.
I think that is okay, because I do want to do a whole episode on our wedding and planning our wedding, and how, spoiler alert, I think neither one of us could have imagined it going any better than it did. And that includes the fact that it did not there were things that didn't necessarily go the way that we planned. So
yeah.
We'll definitely,
or our honeymoon.
Yeah. And I think I want to do a whole episode just like between our wedding and honeymoon, devote an episode to that. Cause I think we have a lot to share there. Again, obviously we're experts on our own wedding and honeymoon, but I think as far as, people planning on getting married or, hoping to get married or whatever, I think we have some insight that we can share there too from what we learned from our experience.
Yeah. And a spoiler alert again, it is so important to do that. It's just, and actually so not the next episode, but the one after that is hopefully going to be about knowing yourself. And I hope that we can bring on a guest who introduced us to the Enneagram, which is a personality inventory type of quiz that you can do. And I definitely want to do something like that. But yeah, knowing yourself, knowing what's important to you, that's a total theme across all these episodes. But when it comes to a wedding, there are certain traditions with weddings that don't have a lot of impact on me. I was not concerned about a lot of the something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, and having a maid of honor and things like that. There are some traditional wedding things that I just didn't care about, and I think that that's fine. If there are things that you don't find important, don't get hung up on those little details, because if it's not going to make your wedding day any more special, then focus on something that would make it more special for you. But yeah, I think we'll get more into that in that episode, I guess. But that's definitely going to be part of it. And again, with the honeymoon, don't just go somewhere that, don't go to Sandals, Jamaica and do an all-inclusive package because that's what you think that you should do. If you want to, that's great. But we definitely had what I would consider a non-traditional honeymoon, and it was the best time ever. So
the next thing we want to talk about is we want to kind of tease what the next episode is going to be. But before that, we want to introduce the wisdom nugget, and we'll have Hannah define wisdom nuggets again. She talked about that a little bit in episode 0.
So yeah, I had a fiction writing teacher who talked about these things called wisdom nuggets that would occur in stories that were submitted. And a wisdom nugget is when your character in a story just regurgitates the theme or the moral of the story in a very forthcoming way. And it's the whole thing with fiction writing is that you should show and not tell, because your readers are smart. Don't treat them like they're stupid.
And you're a bad storyteller if you have to say word for word what your theme is. You didn't do a good job of setting it up, or the whole purpose of storytelling, which is to make something relatable through.
Yeah, you definitely do not want to spoon feed your audience, because that's a surefire way of getting everyone to roll their eyes.
But on this podcast, on the other hand,
that is not necessarily the intention. I don't care about subtlety. I don't really think it's important to be, I know that the listeners are not stupid, but I also think to round out a story or an episode, to bring it back to what were the goals. And I guess
she wants to be transparent in telling you what we hope people can gain from what we're saying and
key
listening
takeaways
to us talking for an hour.
Right.
So
the wisdom nugget of today's episode, it's a little bit more challenging with this episode being all about you and I and not a topic that everybody can relate to, because I think that you and I are, yes, we're average people, but we definitely have marched to the beat of our own drums, I think, throughout our relationship, which I think is a fairly good wisdom nugget.
I think that is the wisdom nugget.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that we've kept circling back to throughout this discussion of how our relationship started and progressed. I think it all comes back to being true to ourselves and therefore being true to each other.
Yeah.
And good communication and making sure that we are open and honest with each other every step of the way, even when it was difficult or uncomfortable or whatever.
Yeah. I think also, like, to not get hung up on the shallow, I like to say, I've used this word several times, to you, at least, that I wouldn't get hung up with the Instagrammability of your life. I think in today's age with social media, it is so easy to live your life in a way that will look good to others. And I think people get caught up with figuring out, like, making decisions, even just like where you want to go, what you want to eat, like, will it look good in a picture? And will you, like, and I totally reject that idea of living life for somebody else,
Yeah. I think we've talked about this before, how you miss out on enjoying life, or when you're looking at everything in life through your phone screen, or thinking about how am I going to spin this event to be a clever post to share with people.
And I mean, we definitely fall victim to that.
Oh, we do it all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. And that's why I feel terrible all the time about how much time I spend just scrolling on social media or whatever. But I think that's part of what the point of this podcast is to take a step back and
challenge the way that you're, the behaviors that you're exhibiting and the viewpoint, the lens in which you're viewing the world. If you're, going throughout life hoping that it looks good to somebody else, I mean, what is the point, I guess?
And that, I think, is the perfect time to wrap this episode up with a teaser of our next episode.
It's really, it's episode number 2, but I think I'm going to label this one as episode 1.1 and the next one 1.2, because it's a continuation of our story.
And it'll give a better perspective on why we started this podcast and what our true motivations behind it were. So needless to say, 2020 took everyone by surprise. I think there was definitely a air of everyone thinking, oh, this is going to be my year. Turns out it was no one's year. There
were no winners in
there were no winners. Anyway, while we have faced all of the challenges and not all of them, but many of the challenges and life upturning events that everyone has felt navigating this pandemic,
we had a very unique challenge.
We had a very unique experience that tied into, that was very much also influenced by the pandemic and made things. So we had something that would have happened to us regardless of whether or not COVID-19 had been a thing. And that would have still happened this year. And then on top of that, all of the things that the pandemic changed the way this event happened or occurred to us. So we'll definitely be hitting some heavier topics, I think, in that episode. And
I think I might just go ahead and be forthcoming and say that I got sick this year, and not sick with the flu. I got sick with an autoimmune disease, which hit us both really hard. It was a very challenging time, and I am still dealing with it and will continue to deal with it for the rest of my life, but really heavily in the next couple of years. So that's, I don't want to be too what's the word, elusive about what the next episode is going to be about.
And it's definitely changed our perspectives. And I think that that's why we feel at least minimally qualified to talk about the subject matter that we're going to talk about in terms of sharing our perspective, sharing the average person perspective, as we mentioned previously. It's a big part of why we're doing this. So we're going to do a whole episode talking about what happened and how it impacted us.
I think that's it. I think that wraps it up.
I think that's good.
Okay. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you guys next time.